Chairwoman Mood, it is noon and you do have a quorum.
Do have a quorum? Good.
Yes,
well, then I'll call the meeting of the Service Committee to order and ask, and we have determined that we have a quorum, so I'll ask for a motion to adopt the agenda.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Fergus and a second from Ms. Gleaton. And okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, so the agenda is adopted. And then the next thing on our agenda is to hear from the Midlands Transit Riders Association. And I see that Walter's here with us, so you can go right ahead, Mr. Durst.
Well, I was just gonna wait when y'all pick up on the proposal I had regarding the route to down Lake Murray Boulevard. I wanted to comment on that in more detail.
Okay.
But from what I know and from what Charles has told me, things are moving along pretty well. I personally had a little problem with the bus that comes every half hour on the 801 early in the morning. It didn't come. So I had to wait another 45 minutes for the next one. But that's my own personal thing. It was on a Monday. It was last Monday, and I don't know if that particular bus didn't have a driver or what the situation was, but I didn't file a complaint against it because it was just me. Anyway, I just would prefer to just talk about the Lake Murray route.
All right. Well, what I thought we'd do is that when we get to Eric Harris, the discussion of ridership, then I wanted us to I want to hear you out and then have us talk about how we go about fitting that into the overall plans, because as you know, we are in the midst of the reimagining, which does affect, may well affect a lot of our routes. And so, and you've lived with us long enough to know that we don't want to just piecemeal and patchwork plans, because that can create problems as well as providing help. So if you will, we'll just hear from you when we get to the ridership part of the report of the agenda, and then we'll just see what's the most appropriate thing, where to take that request next.
Okay, and also add another item too to bring up during that time too. So
you rather wait and do that then? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a note and we'll do that.
Okay, thanks.
Right, thank you. Okay, then item 4 is the adoption of minutes from October 13th. And when Mr. Cooksey and I were talking briefly before the meeting started, I said, "Oh my goodness, we had a lot of minutes." A lot of pages of minutes, and I'm amazed at how much detail is in there, and I don't know how to shorten that because I don't want us to miss what we are doing in the meeting. But with that said, do I have a motion to adopt the minutes from our October meeting?
So moved.
Motion we adopt.
All right, a motion from Mr. Fergus and a second from Ms. Gleaton. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And Ms. Gleaton, aye. So the minutes then are adopted. So we'll move on to the item number 5, the 5A, the passenger amenities program update. And I'm looking to see who's with us today. Oh, there's Mr. McGee. Yes, good.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
In the past month, we were able to get one additional SCDOT permit for stop number 1265 at Assembly in Richland. That was for a bench. And but additionally, we've been working with AOS. We've had a shipment of orders of shelters come in between last week and early this week, I believe. And so we're coordinating all of the, on page 18, all of the work in progress. All those stops should be receiving one of those shelters. And then in the coming, generally take about a month or so to get those installed. But we would look to have most of those in place by the time we're at this meeting again. That's the biggest update, I believe.
Well, that's very good news that the supply chain is working now, that we have finally got that the materials and the equipment. So that's very good news. Was there, I was looking back to see, we had one that last time that was pending, waiting for in Forest Acres. Did that get, I think that still shows as pending on our report this time, doesn't it?
It does, yes. I have not heard anything else.
Nothing new has come through on that. No. And so I remember, Zach, that you were saying that that's a coordination between DOT and Forest Acres because of the location of the stop.
Correct, yes. So typically when we passed up to DOT, they kind of check all their boxes as well. And based on that stop, they had reached out to Forest Acres and were looking for some more information before DOT was going to approve it. So
okay, well,
I guess they've not heard back.
Well, okay, all right. Any other questions on the amenities report? Well, thank you for that update. We'll receive that as information and move on to Mr. Cooksey and Mr. Smith and the RapDev operations report.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I also, before I jump right into this, I made note of the 801 not showing up last Monday. So I'll take a look at that just for myself to kind of know what happened on that day. So I did make a note of that. Yeah.
It was the I'm at Zimmelcrest, and it was the 9:15.
Okay. All right. Noted. So I'll take a peek at that and see what happened. We'll go ahead and just dive right into the information, starting off with our COVID-19. First thing I wanted to just quickly discuss was our COVID-19 town hall sessions that we had in October. They were very successful. We had a great turnout. We estimated about 55 employees came to the 2-day event. There was a lot of great questions. It was very interactive. I think it was, we had people from different departments that came through. You saw them in paratransit, maintenance, operations. So I was very excited to see the different people coming and asking questions and wanting to get more information, and how many people are sharing their own story of their experience that they've had with family or themselves, or asking questions, about pre-existing conditions and all the different rumors. You'd be amazed. Well, I guess none of us are really amazed at the amount of misinformation that's out there. It is real. And just being in that environment, you really hear it. But we're very thankful to have a practicing physician come in and kind of dispel those myths and talk to the staff. So I think that was a success. And I just wanted to report out on that. I shared a couple of pictures with you so you can see. Again, it's something that went very well. So I just wanted to report that.
Well, Mr. Cooksey, I can see from your graph that did make a difference in the percentage. So people followed through after that, getting that information and actually got vaccinated. It looks like that you had people do that, which is very encouraging. And can you identify the things that still seem to be holding folks back? Did that come out were there any patterns that came out clearly in the discussion?
No direct patterns. There was nothing that we could kind of key in on that was specific as far as a pattern or a trend on why people aren't. I just think that if anything, because there's so much information, it's like that may be more of the holdback like it's so much, like who do you believe, where do you go? As opposed to, if I got the right information, then yes, maybe I'd make the decision to do it. But you know, what line, where do I follow? You know, even Dr. Daniel said, you know, a lot of people are looking at TikTok and all these different social media sites, and you know, and the stuff is just very difficult to weed through what's real. And I think more sessions, not just here at RITP Dev Comment, but I think more of these type of sessions are very beneficial, because he actually took the time when if people had personal questions, he would actually took the time to pull them off to the side and answer those questions if it's something specific that they were dealing with. So, you know, having that type of access, and I think it may be an access issue to a medical professional who's on the front lines, makes the difference, as opposed to, again, all the different, you know, entities that are out there that aren't real, or, you know, false information and so forth. So for me, seeing that did make a huge difference. I'm hoping to be able to do this again in the month of December as we get closer to January 4th. You know, so we can bump that number up. Now, we like to believe that, you know, this did help us go. We were reporting in the 70s. You know, I like to report now we're in the low 80s, maybe a 4% increase. That this did help drive that, but you know, we still have to keep our foot on the gas, because you know, we need to make sure we get to everyone. Everyone has an opportunity to hear this information, you know, from a practicing physician. And the reason I broke it down the way I wanted to do a simpler graph. I just like to get to the point. Here are the numbers. Here's what we're looking at. And I broke it down by area, because it's, you know, maintenance, fixed route, paratransit, and administration. And the reason I did that is we really need to start looking, and I felt, at the impact on each area, as opposed to a global view. To know, okay, you know, next month, or, you know, come January, you know, what is the challenge is going to be in each area. So from an operational standpoint, for RITP Dev in the comment, what's the impact to the community? You know, those very people that have to go to work, they have to go to doctor's appointments, all the, you know, who will be impacted, where and how. So now we work with HR local. How are we going to prepare in the event we're still at, say, 15% of the staff in a certain area? What does that look like? How do we cover it? How do we make sure that service is interrupted? So it's a deeper look at now, you know, at what we're looking at. And I think breaking the chart or the graph down like this, it helps me and it helps our team see exactly where we may be running into trouble. Now, fortunately for us, we're not starting from zero. We're saying 8 out of 10 are covered. So we're starting pretty high. You know, the bar is set high. So we've just got to get over the finish line with that last 20% or 15%. And this will help me kind of focus efforts in certain areas. And it looks like, you know, looking at this maintenance, fixed route, and para are really kind of even across the board. So, you know, we'll put apply a little more, you know, if we got to do some internal marketing and down the stretch here, and you know, hopefully Pam's team can help us with designing some additional flyers as we kind of push it over the finish line. So that is the reason for the change in the graph, because I really want us to now start looking at, okay, operationally, what is this going to do to us? How are we going to survive when we get to January 4th? And the reason I keep bringing up January 4th, if you've been following, by January 4th, you'll either have to be vaccinated. If not, and of course, in our case, you're looking at weekly testing, and you have to, bring a negative result or be vaccinated. So, you know, that's on the table. That's what's coming down the pike, and all the things I'm doing now, or the team, is we're just preparing for it. And, you know, I know that was a little lengthy, but
well, I want you to know that I really personally appreciate the kind of commitment that you are demonstrating to make this happen, and recognize that the last few are going to be harder than the first low-hanging fruit. So I appreciate the difficulty in that. Two things that come to my mind. One is that apparently made a good choice of the person, the doctor, to present, because he seems to be able to have built some trust with the people he's talking to, which is just key. I mean, if people trust the source of information, that goes a long way. The other things is, I'll just say here, and Mr. Fergus, I'm realizing that this is going to spill over into the COVID part about our agenda, but while we're on the subject, I feel like we might as well just talk about everything at once. But so one thing is, you mentioned the federal requirements, and we know that with OSHA that there are a lot of legal things pending there. We had a conversation at the board meeting about whether there's some other things that we ought to try in terms of what are reasonable alternatives to assure safety if people are not vaccinated. And there is a phone call with our legal counsel set up to look at some of the issues there. So that's not until next week. But I just want people to know that we haven't let that go either. So we're looking at all of the ways that we can get to the finish line, as you pointed out. And wow, won't we be relieved when everybody's safe again? So
absolutely. And just so the board knows, and my coworkers and colleagues and so forth, I'm preparing for the worst case scenario. And regardless of what comes down, we're looking at it, worst case scenario, where, how do we maintain service? And, this is my third agency, and where I've had to lead through COVID. So I feel pretty confident in the direction we need to move in operationally. And so, all plans are kind of geared towards us, without the least amount of interruption to service as we come up on that date, regardless of whatever legal issues come down or handed to us, we're preparing.
Okay, and I'm just going to pause and ask if there's anybody else on the committee who has a question or comment on this particular part of Mr. Cooksey's report.
Well, Ms. Moody,
yes,
I am so appreciative to hear his report, because I was a little concerned about that too. So he has really answered a lot of my questions as far as us on the ridership with people riding the bus and being safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gleaton. You want to go ahead and proceed, Mr. Cooksey?
Yes, I will continue. So,
Ms. Moody, this is Robert Smith, because if I could make a quick comment to put context around it. Okay, the comment compared to other groups that I'm dealing with within our network is doing a lot better. And I'll give you an example. When I tell people what we're doing at the comment, they're impressed. When we're in the 78 to 80% percentage that I'm talking about in terms of vaccinations, they want to know what we are doing. And a lot of that ties back to general overall morale of the agency is better. It also ties back to the educational things that your staff and what the board is doing by putting focus on this. I mean, you've got a committee. It's discussed at the service committee meetings as well. And the other thing is, as Lenny is bringing people in at noon, we're actually doing it as we bring people in, and effectively pretty much at the point where we're saying you have to be vaccinated to come on board. So we're basically fully staffed, which is unusual compared to our other locations, and our vaccination rate is at least 30 to 40% higher. So that's a congratulatory statement that I'm making to the board, to Mr. Huggins, and to everyone else in your leadership here. So I just wanted to put context around that.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, anything else on this? Then we'll move on to the customer service. Go ahead, Mr. Cooksey.
Yes, so as far as the customer service, we did see a slight uptick in reference to our complaints compared to last month. Again, our Achilles heel, which we are very aware of, and I'll be glad one day we'll get to the point where reliability, that category will be amongst the bottom. But right now, it is not. It is of these particular complaints that came in at 72.3% of all the complaints. But I will say, as far as the safety, because we did have some alarming numbers a couple of months ago, it has actually decreased even further, down to 4.6%, down from 9.7. So I am very glad as the GM to see that number moving back in the right direction, as I will be when the reliability numbers also begin to move back in a more positive direction. As far as our complaints, however, we are meeting our target of 6 per 100,000 customers. We came in at 4.71. So one complaint is too many, one valid complaint, but we're constantly addressing these issues and holding people accountable when we find that we do have a valid complaint.
And could you clarify for us how you go about making the distinction about what complaints are valid and what are invalid?
Sure. So we have different avenues or mechanisms to do that. And on my next slide, reliability, when I take a closer look, we have camera systems on board the buses. And we also have a automatic vehicle locator software that allows us to also verify vehicle locations, especially in events of pass ups or my bus didn't show up or anything of that nature. So we're able to, with good consistency, be able to tell especially on these type of complaints, if they're valid or invalid, because the video will show exactly what happened or didn't happen, or where the bus was or where it was not. So we feel pretty confident that if I, mention, hey, it was an invalid or valid complaint, we feel pretty strong that in this particular case, as far as reliabilities, that would be the case. And in fact, that's an error area. If you have a person that says, hey, operator was rude to me, or, if there's a safety issue, the video actually shows us exactly what happens. So, and we have it, obviously we're able to pull it, we review it, and at that point, make the decision based around the complaint, if it's a valid versus or invalid complaint. So that's how we determine those complaints.
And that's very helpful. And would you then say just something about what your follow-up is on the valid complaints?
Sure, well, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. So what we do is, as far as the operator involved, we will actually set up a meeting with that individual, have them view the video as well, giving them an opportunity if there's any type of explanation. Generally, like I say, it's pretty dead on, but you do allow for, feedback on that. And then at that point, based on that individual's record or to what level we're looking at, there's either retraining, there's a progressive discipline process that's followed. So those things are taken very seriously. And, and that generally, that's how we handle it. It's just straight on. Here's the complaint. What do you have to, your response to it? And here's the action. We either retraining, or obviously it's documented. It's a written documentation. And then of course, we get more than one as they, as say there's 2 or 3 that come in, we'll follow our progressive steps, which may lead to suspension or written warning, suspension, and then ultimately up to termination. So, those are the steps we follow. Those
persistent steps. Problems, right?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for that. And do any of the rest of you have questions? Okay, well, we'll proceed then. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. And I did touch on it a little bit. I did a slide here in reference to reliability, a closer look, because I just wanted to again remind the board of what triggers a reliability concern. And it's either my bus did not show up, it's early, it's late, the bus passed me up. Those are things in that category. But what I wanted to share for the month of October, we had 47 reliability concerns, and which accounted for 72.3%, which was on the previous slide. But when we dig a little deeper, we look closer, 20 of the 47 concerns were invalid, meaning that it did not take, that wasn't the case per the complaint. So so basically 57.5 of at least last month of the reliability concerns were valid, about a little over half. Now that's roughly what I've seen in the agencies I've worked in. About 50% of those reliability concerns are invalid. But the reason I just wanted to show you this is we capture every complaint. I mean, if somebody takes the time to call in, and they obviously have a concern. But when you start to peel it back, okay, then you're starting to see additional numbers like, okay, well, half of these are valid versus invalid. So I just want to just kind of bring it up just to kind of educate you on that. As how I'm looking further into different things. And that's one of the areas as we kind of dig through our different types of complaints. And I just shared this particular one because it did stand out for the month of October.
Well, it's reassuring that when you're not just reporting numbers, that you're actually doing that closer look and the follow-up behind it. And so I appreciate it. Yes,
ma'am. Jumping on to maintenance. Maintenance is one of our highlighted areas. The shining star. As far as the preventive maintenance, there were 54 that were completed, that were triggered basically by the accumulated mileage. So we were able to complete all those PMs. So the maintenance team is doing an excellent job. So much so that if I look at the PM results slide, which is the next one, we've had our best miles between road calls that we've had since the contract started. I'm not sure previously what the numbers were reported, but these are strong numbers. I was excited last month in September. I'm like, man, we can't get any better than this. But October, we came in very strong. And a lot of that help, being fully staffed makes a difference. Good weather helps. New vehicles helps. All the things, the trifecta of things, the perfect storm of possibilities have come together to really drive these numbers up. And I know the maintenance team, Ron Sweeney and his team, they know how important it is to hit these numbers, and that's a good maintenance team back there. I've had a few, but they do a good job, and so kudos to them, just staying focused and getting the job done. So,
it's easy to see too the connection between, if you have fewer road calls, I mean, that affects reliability too. So all of these things are connected.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Very good observation. You're correct. As far as our maintenance campaigns, one of the campaigns that's pretty exciting is they're analyzing the liquid spring suspension ride for the cutaway buses, which really provide a smoother ride, for our riders with disabilities. That's always a great thing to have, to kind of smooth those rides out. Maybe by next month, I'll have some additional information in reference to that and kind of focus a little bit more on what that campaign looks like, or kind of what, the analysis looks like. But that's a great campaign that's going on with that team. As far as our on-time performance, still where we pretty much reporting the same numbers, no change there. Para slightly down, but again, well above the goal. So, this is an ongoing issue that has a lot of movement happening with it. And, I know everyone will be excited when we actually get to some numbers that are much more favorable than what we're seeing now. But it's not without effort and analysis.
Well, let me ask you this, and Mr. Hubble and Eric, I know that you're on this call too. So, we've talked a lot in the committee about the multifaceted nature of the on-time performance problem. But do you feel like you are mastering some of those pieces, and is it narrowing down to what's continuing to be so persistent in terms of the numbers we're seeing?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Mood, if I can take just a couple minutes. Yes, we are making substantial progress on resolution of some of those issues that we found over the past 6-8 months impacting the actual in-field on-time performance, but also the reporting of the on-time performance. Just this morning, meeting with the team, we've been able to get the software provider to switch their calculations of on-time performance from arrival to departure from the stop, because as you know, it is key to the reliability of, you know, did I miss my bus? Well, what time did the bus leave? Just that change alone generated almost a 4 to 5% percentage point increase in on-time performance over what Mr. Cooksey was just showing on the slide, because he was dealing, he was collecting the data for the report he's providing under the old scenario. So just that change alone improved the OTP, 5, 6, 7%, and it's allowing us to now drill down and deal with, okay, what are the issues? Many of them, we believe, frankly, are cultural from the RATP dev predecessors that were communicating to their operators to just hurry up and get to the end of the line. Just do it quickly. Well, and in doing it quickly, you're not managing your time points, you're not managing your route performance. So you're, in many cases, over 30% now that we can see departures, over 30% of the departures for just the last 2 weeks were early departures. Those are relatively, I won't say quick to fix, but they are easier to fix than late departures, because they do require communication. And RapDev and the Comet, we've all acknowledged we're talking about change management here. We are developing a communication plan to talk to the operators about, okay, new rules now. We want to manage our departures on an incremental basis throughout the route. And the information is now made available to them through their mobile data terminals. They can see dynamically and in real time whether they're on schedule or behind schedule or ahead of schedule. So they do need to be reoriented to, hold at a stop. It's okay to hold at a stop midpoint of the route if you're running ahead of schedule. Hold there and wait and get back on schedule. So we're real excited about some of these changes, turn by turn. I think we spent a lot of time over the past few months with Ms. Mood, with your committee, talking about, the turn by turns, or the route profiles, as we call it. We have reconciled 100% of the turn by turns to make sure that every operator has the same instructions. And now we're working with Eric is working with, going to be working with Trillium here in the next few weeks. They're the software provider that converts these words to data, and then that can be loaded into the system again, so that the operator is seeing not only schedule adherence, but they are seeing what turns to make, and it is that single source of truth. So we're going to start seeing, I think, some pretty exponential improvements in that OTP data now that we have scrubbed and reconciled some of these issues.
Well, those specifics are very reassuring, and so I'm thank you for providing those. Does anyone else have something to add or to ask? Okay, well, thank you for filling out some of that picture for us. All right, back to you, Mr. Cooksey.
Yes, ma'am. So as far as the ridership, just a quick summary. In reference to our the all aboard slide, actually on the second bullet point, I had incorrectly put in the wrong ridership number for October 2020. It actually should be 2012 172. I had 190,085. So if I correct that, what we're looking at is a decrease from October of this year versus last year, same time, a decrease of 34.9%. So I'll make that correction when we forward the, for the board packet. So just an error and plugging in the wrong number there. If we look at our previous month comparison, if we're looking at October versus September, we're down 15% compared to, September. And you see that, where you see that number kind of really coming into play is at the University of South Carolina. You see that number down considerably in October versus September. So if you look at the other modes of transit, it was close, but that's the one that really kind of showed the difference there. And and then as far as our average daily ridership graph, that's just kind of a summary and overall of the numbers that I just presented there. You generally, what I have found just in, over the years, October being generally a little bit stronger month than this month. So, we'll definitely see how that continues to trend.
Well, I know that you meet regularly with the university folks. So do they have any insight into what may have been happening in October that would change the ridership there?
Nothing's been shared with me, but I know, my time with being a part of the service at the University of Central Florida, UCF, a lot of times in the month of October, we did see a decline in ridership over September. You get all the excitement classes, starting, and you have a lot of people out in September versus when you're on more of a routine schedule as you get into your latter part of your quarter, your semester in October. So sometimes you see a decline there, but nothing's been shared that this deep of a decline. I'll of course reach out and see if they have anything on their horizon that may be any different than what I have seen, just being involved with university transportation previously. So, take a listen for that. As far as the average ridership, this particular slide just really supports the last two numbers. So let's kind of give you an overall view if you kind of want to see it kind of trended out. Our top 4 passenger boardings, not much changes in this particular slide. It's pretty consistent with the numbers. Again, just kind of give you an idea of higher route or paired route passenger boardings. Again, we added the Gamecock ridership, and as you can see, the 33,745 that we're reporting as for passenger boardings is a 34% decrease for the month. So compared to the previous month. So we do see it here, and if there's any additional information reported to me, I'll be glad to share that when I do get it. As far as the game day shuttle, we had 2 games in the month of October, so pretty good ridership there. And I think we had 2 wins that go around, so that's a good thing there. Jumping on to safety, again, good safety numbers. Unfortunately, we did have 2 preventable accidents. My goal is I'm really shooting hard for the team. Obviously we'd love to have 0, and that's our goal. Every month is 0. So we're constantly going to push for that. Love to see a string of 0s coming up in the future months, but we did have 2 there. And, with those particular preventables, we had some injuries with that as well. So from that standpoint, we met our goal as far as our target for preventable accidents.
Join the meeting.
But my goal is 0, and we're going to keep pushing towards that. So,
and were the injuries extensive, serious?
We had one injury, a hand injury that was a little bit more intense than normal. That person is fine. They're doing well. So anytime you have an accident or an injury, you're to an operator or anyone or a passenger, it's definitely a thing of concern. But that one was a little bit deeper than your normal surface injury. So we're still, supporting that person and so forth. So, but to answer your question, one of the two, the other is minor injury. As far as our human resource efforts, very strong in staffing. We are fully staffed. So, and we have some operators in training. I mean, my understanding before I got here, this was a struggle and big time. But I think the efforts through HR, through RATP devs efforts, I mean, really the whole team and our HR generalist / manager, Courtney, she's getting them in here and they're staying. And that's the key is, okay, you've got all these people coming in. Now, what do you do to make sure they stay? That's the tough thing is now we're going to run up against a potential buzzsaw on the 4th, on these efforts. And that's why it's so important to make sure that we're ready to kind of, we just don't want to lose momentum that we have, right? It's so vital. It's hard to go back. This is one of the, at the conference that I'm flying in from or traveling back from, I talked to so many different people or who's saying they are having so many problems staffing. They're like, how do you do it? How are you staffed? Because we can't find anyone. We're down 20, 30%, so again, don't want to harp on that. We're where we need to be. We're going to continue to keep our foot on the gas and we're trying to stay 2 steps ahead, because 1 step ahead really isn't enough in this environment. You have to be 2 steps ahead at least. So
and we're continuing our collaboration with the Midlands Tech folks.
Yes, I mean we're collaborating with anybody who wants to collaborate. Yes. And we'll talk to you. You want a job, we will, the great thing about this organization is we can train you. We can take somebody who's never driven a bus and we can teach you how to safely operate a bus and teach you how to treat people well and offer a premium customer experience. So we have that capability here, and we are definitely keying in on that and taking advantage of it. So, and that is, a good piece of why we've been successful. As we jumping into our KPI indicators, again, Mr. Hubble spoke about our OTP fixed route issues and things we've circled in on. So as far as fixed route, obviously not hitting that goal, but we're working on it. We are with the paratransit. Again, miles between road calls, we're just crushing that number in a positive way. Our complaints, we're hitting that number as well. We're meeting that target, and we're meeting our target as far as preventable accidents. So that'll conclude my report. I'm open for any questions. Also, one thing I wanted to report, I know on the last service committee meeting, there was a mention about some buses that were leaking and some water coming in and that kind of thing. Well, I did talk to maintenance, and I had them go back and take a look at our DVI reports on, what's been reported in reference to, water leaking. If they could go back through those reports, and when they get an opportunity, take a look at the different seals that are throughout the bus. So, those are usually best when it's raining, as opposed to later when there's no water. It's kind of hard to find a leak without that. But we are kind of keeping an eye on that. I did let the maintenance manager know, hey, let's take a look at any worn seals or anything like that. Because there's so many holes in these buses now than the old days, because you have all this different technology attached to it. So water has a great opportunity to find its way in. But we'll keep our eyes on that. And
would that sort of problem show up when the buses go through the bus wash? Would you get something?
It could if it'd have to be somebody in there to really be paying attention to that. So that's where I said, hey, look, let's kind of keep an eye on this and kind of patch this up as we go. A lot of times it's not called in, or, the operator, it may be in a certain part of the bus. They may not be fully aware because people are tracking in and out and there's water everywhere. But, we just got to be conscious of it. One, slipping hazards. Obviously, we got to be careful with that. But also with all of our electronics on board as well, we want to make sure we protect our, the investment that's being made.
Right.
And that concludes my report. I'm open for any questions.
Okay. Does anyone have questions?
Question. Okay. You said that those people turned those things in. Well, I was on one of the buses a couple of weeks ago. I know it was 501, and one day I was on 12.
Okay.
There was a leak coming down over the seat. So I said to the bus driver, I said, did you write this report up when you got off this afternoon to make sure this turned in? She said, I did. I said, well, evidently nobody's following up on it because it was raining all that day. Mm-hmm. Appointments, and the rain was coming down through the ceiling of the bus. I can't remember the number of the bus now, but I know it was one of them in 7 something. I know that.
Okay.
Right down on that seat.
All righty. Well,
yeah. Okay.
No, I clearly hear you, and you know, you bringing it up last time. It's put it on the radar to be, you know, part of what we need to be looking at and tightening up. So I appreciate you bringing it up. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anything else for Mr. Cooksey? All right. Well, thank you, Sarah. And we'll move on to you, Eric, to talk about ridership and for Walter to provide what he wanted us to know from him too. So Eric, you want to start us?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Mood. For the month of September, weekday service, we are performing well. We are up by 15%. We could argue that we have been trending in an upward direction since June. But July, we kind of was slightly down by 4%. But as a whole, you obviously can see that we are doing well. We are still about 22,000 passengers away from where we were last year around this time. But as for Saturday service, as mentioned last month, we are up and down at best. For the month of September, we are at 1%. We're up 1% overall with our ridership. The only route that poses a little concern, and I pay close attention to, is Route 77, which is Polo Road. We're down by 48%. All the other routes are pretty steady. And if we did see a slip in ridership, it wasn't by much outside of the norm. As for Sunday ridership, we're down by 20%, coming off of August, where ridership was up by 32%. And last year around this time, we saw 2 consecutive months of low ridership, September and October. So when Mr. Cooksey, when he made that statement, it was right in line with everything that I am expecting for the month of October. But we do expect to see more of a spike, more so in the month of November. And maybe it's because it's finals time. Not quite sure, but last year that's exactly what the trend reflected. So as far as Sunday ridership, 92S performed really well. The route concerns, this is the route that connects to the Amazon plant. If you are not as familiar with that, I expect to see pretty high ridership until at least January along this route, considering you're moving into the holiday season. And right now, ridership is up by 56%.
Okay. Anybody have questions for Eric on that report, part of the report? Okay, well, Walter, I'm going to turn it back over to you to describe what you want us to know.
Okay, also I wanted to just follow up on Eric's comment. Also consider the fact that last year at this time, the buses were free because of the pandemic. So that probably might skew the percentage last year to this year. Just want to throw that out. Couple of things. The thing that I mentioned at the board meeting about the route that we were proposing to go down Lake Murray Boulevard across the dam and up to Walmart on 378. There is a apartment complex on Lake Murray Boulevard, among many others, called Sandstone, which is low income HUD. And the only way they have a way to get to the grocery store is by catching a ride with somebody else. And that can be rather not very convenient. What we were looking at was to maybe connect the bus on Lake Murray Boulevard to either the 83L or the 801, maybe even as far back as Walmart on at Harbison. But that, you know, for the people that might, bus riders like me that might want to go to the lake, see the 4th of July fireworks. I know the parking down at the lake is pretty tough to get into a lot of times. So it would just be more of a convenient thing. So I just want to throw that out to y'all and think about it. I have heard back from the landlord at Sandstone, which I reached out to, and they said that they were excited about the possibility. So I just throw that out. The other thing.
Go ahead.
Okay, the other thing I wanted to mention was something I heard about a month ago, and I don't know if it was followed through with or not, but when the Harrison Road route was eliminated, and I quite frankly forget why that was, but I'm sure there was a good reason. The folks that are in apartments down on Covenant and Bethel Church were having a hard time getting to the grocery store as well. From what I understand, and I'm hearing this third hand, so bear with me on this, that a petition was put out at the Landings Apartments on Covenant Road to petition the Comet to reinstate the Harrison Road route. I don't know if that was actually submitted to the Comet or whether the petition is still out there for more people to sign. It didn't come from Midlands Transit. It came from the people there at the Landings. So, you know, maybe that's something that needs to be revisited. The route that went from Two Notch, Harrison Road, Covenant. I think at one time it went up Atascadero, up to Forest Drive.
It did. It did.
Okay, but that might be something to look at again, because from what I'm hearing from especially the people at the Landings, is they really are having a tough time getting to the nearest grocery store, which is on Forest Drive.
Well, thank you for that, Walter. And both of these we're aware are things that we aren't going to wrap up and have a solution in the midst of this meeting. But Eric, can you take both of those and kind of follow through? You may have something to add at this point, but I'm also thinking about the Harrison Road, but I'm also thinking about, as we get closer and closer to our consultants being able to present us with a new configuration of routes under Reimagine, you know, how do we work with taking a look at the kinds of things that Walter's brought up? So what?
Absolutely. To address the first concern about the Lake Murray Dam and having access along that corridor, I did take a look at the routes. It take a little bit of time just trying to figure out how to best, I guess, integrate the service in that area, and also taking a look at the budget and determining what the funding sources thereof. But I did take a look at 88, which is the crosstown route, a potential extension of that route, also 93X, 83L, as you mentioned, and also the 801 would be a possibility. 83L and 801 is an interline route, so we have to be a little bit more strategic with those. But there is borderline some opportunity there, and I'll take a look and see what we can do. But to address your other concern about Route 74, it was discontinued because of the lack of ridership that we had along that route. Now, I don't mind, taking a look. Let's see what we can do to address some of those concerns. Or maybe it's a coverage issue in some of that area. But what I do, I take your comments back and see if I can make any improvements in that area. At one point, we did have a on-demand service out there along that corridor, and I just have to evaluate and see if that would be a possible option. But we do go to our our stakeholder meetings next week with Reimagine the Comment, and so we do expect to bring that to the front of that conversation as well to see if we can add that into one of the coverage or ridership alternatives.
Well, I'm thinking too, Eric and Pam, you may want to chime in here that in the interim, while we're kind of working through how do you come to a more permanent solution, that for at least for folks that find themselves then isolated from grocery stores, could they use our program that helps people get rides to food desert areas? Could that be maybe a stopgap?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it can, as long as they live in a food desert, meaning that there's no viable grocery store anywhere within a certain radius. And they don't have to, I mean, we give that code out, Comment Market 20, that anybody can have that code. So it's not predicated upon them riding a fixed route bus to get the code like it is for Comment at Night.
Well, would you two put your heads together on that and see how, and maybe be able to bring that back to us? I mean, we won't be meeting again now until January. So if there's something that can be done to help people through the holidays by using one of the existing programs, could we look at that? And if there's something that needs some sort of action and we need to ask the board about it, would you let me know that? And because we will have a board meeting before the end of the year. So.
And
Walter, you had something else?
Yeah, could y'all reach out to the landings and just find out what the situation is? Because like I said, I'm getting this third hand and
to see what happened with the petition.
Yeah, I don't even know what the amount of interest is. So
that's a good point.
Absolutely.
Ms. Mood, I have a question on that, Ms. Mood.
Yes, Ms. Gleason.
Ms. Carolyn Gleason. Okay.
Yes.
Down there off of Tascadero and all of that, the bus used to run down Covington Road, the Tascadero and Beltline and all down in that area. Well, a lot of those residents did not want that bus coming through their residential area. I know that for a known fact, okay? So make sure we check all the dotted I's to make sure we check it out, okay?
That's a good point to bring up too, okay? Thank you, Ms.
And Ms. Moot, for the record, I was gonna ask, after this meeting, at some point, I'll reach out to you, Walter, and to make sure that we can address your concerns in the temporary.
Thanks a bunch.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else for Eric? All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Hubble, you're going to talk to us about the data analytics.
Yes, ma'am. Most of what I discussed already during Mr. Cooksey's report, I just want to add one more exciting piece of news. We are in final review and actually being routed around for signature the supplemental work agreement for the additional service planning and scheduling work that's needed to analyze the running times, bring the running times into alignment, and make those tweaks that are necessary throughout the day to compensate for the environmental impacts that occur, traffic and the like throughout the day, and really look holistically at the running times and those route patterns. And so we're really excited to get started with that. That really complements the additional work that work elements that I've already talked to the committee about today, and all of this culminating, we hope, in a solid new run structure, new timetables, new communications, all of that rolling out in mid to late March. And that's all I had, Madam Chair.
Okay. The one thing that comes to my mind is, you know, we saw the publicity about them actually having the formal start of the Carolina Crossroads project. And it made me think about our bus traffic around the area they'll be focusing on first is the I-26, I-20 interchange. And I mean, I know we don't have a lot of buses running on interstates, but I think it just kind of put up a little warning flag for me to ask that we are in communication with where those folks are going to be working to see how that might affect our routes that run in that area.
Yes, ma'am. We'll coordinate that with Eric.
I can tell you that you know, they have another project. DOT has another project to do 3 interchanges, and those are really directly impact where I live, because the Chapin interchange is one of those. And what we're already seeing with the construction up there with the Peak exit and the Little Mountain exit, now the Chapin one, is how that's impacted the traffic on the alternate roads. So, yeah. For example, you know, Highway 76 is just, you know, bumper to bumper because people are trying to avoid the construction. And I just, when we're trying so hard to keep buses on time, and as you talked about looking at what can interrupt the service on a day, I just want us to be sure we have that on our radar.
And I'll work with Eric and Mr. Cooksey on formalizing some of those detours that may be necessary to get around these I'll call it long-term construction zones.
Well, they say we're going to be in this for 8 years, which is
right.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You, well, thank you, sir. Did anybody have questions for Mr. Hubble? Okay. All right. And so then I think the E, we've just talked about that, Eric, we've already folded that in. So I think we've already covered 5E. And on the special COVID-19 subcommittee update, do we have anything to add to our earlier discussion on that? Well, hearing none, I'm going to assume that we've covered that with our earlier discussion on COVID. And the only thing else left on our agenda is adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right.
I second.
I second. We are all in favor. Aye. Thank you so much. Y'all have safe travel back, Pam, and the rest of you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Pam. All right, bye-bye.